Becky Gitau is my name.
Yeah.
I'm a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
And I have practiced, I think, can't remember, but for the last maybe past 15 years.
Yeah.
I'm a PhD student.
Yeah.
They're taking clinical psychologist, almost graduating.
Yes.
Now to be a full-blown daktari.
Daktari Becky.
Yeah, so day in, day out, I practice is helping a profession. And I'm so excited that today we are talking about mental illness.
Yes.
Because what has happened is that in Africa, this is a very new topic. But I'm happy the way people are embracing. And like you have said, last year we even had our president talking about it and declaring mental illness as a national disaster.
True.
And I'm happy I was also involved in part of making the policy and the guideline that was made, especially in the management of mental illness.
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
Yeah.
Even where I work, I'm in charge of mental illness and all those access to the services.
Yeah.
Yes, that's briefly me.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to come and discuss that topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Karibu tena.
Thank you.
Yes. So now let's start where it all starts. We're talking about depression. Kindly unpack for us what depression is all about.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll start by saying depression is a brain disorder, but it's other mental illness. We have different types of mental illness, many types of mental illness, but I think people just talk about depression. We have mood disorders, we have psychosis, I mean, we have psychotic, we have bipolar, we have so many types of mental illness. So depression being one of the mental illness or mental disorders. Let me first of all give our viewers, a background of mental illness and mental wealth and health.
Yes.
Because this is where now when people understand this, they'll stop the stigma and will come out and talk about it. Because I guess the reason why we are not talking about mental illness is a stigma. Yeah. And this is where I say mental illness is just like any other kind of illness. The only difference is that it affects the brain. Other illness affects maybe have a stomach cancer. It's still an illness.
Other parts of the body.
Other parts of the body.
Yes.
So this one is an illness that have affected my brain. And brain is everything. Yeah. Because brain is what guides me. It's what directs me. Actually, in a summary, let's say brain is just like an engine of the car. So if the engine of the car stops, the whole car cannot move. That's same with the mental illness. So when the brain is not functioning well, the whole system of the body will not function well. And I think that's why we are here, so that we can discuss this and tell the viewers that you are sick and you need to come out. And we tell the whole society, we need to stop stigmatizing. Just the way I'll tell someone, I have stomach ache, and everyone will support me. Even when I have brain ache, people should support me.
Yes, brain ache.
Yeah, brain ache, because depression and mental illness. So what is this mental wellness? Mental wellness is when you are able to carry out your work, your daily routines and activity well. And even when you are under a stressful situations, you are able to negotiate. So the fact that you are mentally stable and well is not an absence of stress. It means you'll be able to negotiate and you're able to carry out your daily routine and activities well. Yeah. But when you have mental illness, you will not be able to carry out your daily activities. They are affected. And again, in case there is a stressful situation, and this is what I want to tell viewers, no one doesn't go through stressful situation. It's normal, and actually we say it's healthy.
Yes.
Because what stress does, it makes you think out of box. It makes you probably push yourself higher. It makes you think of alternative and all that. So when you're mentally ill, the stress may finish you. But when you're mentally healthy, you'll be able, actually the stress will build you. Now, coming to our topic, depression. First of all, let's all agree that this is a word that has been misused. Because anytime you feel sad or you see someone is sad, what do people say? I think
depressed.
she is depressed, or he's depressed, or I'm depressed.
Yeah, actually people talk about, even they tell themselves, when you're talking to Becky, you say, I'm depressed.
Yes, yes.
So loosely.
Yes.
I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we are here to create this awareness, because depressed moods could be like stress, which is normal. But today we are talking about clinical depression. And we'll see what is the difference between, you know, those sadness, normal sadness, and normal, normal depressed mood and clinical depression. So let's start with the normal sadness mood. This is normal to so many people. You know, you can wake up like the way today we woke up and it's raining, and you're trying to think, how do I negotiate? You are in a traffic, you are late for work, you don't have money, you know. I mean, there are many things that are surrounding us that can make us become sad and have low moment. So that is not depression.
No.
That is just, those are normal things that affect us, and they may put us into a low moment. Yes, they may affect the way we see things. So what we say, when you're in such situation, of course, when they are prolonged, you know, when the raw moment, the sadness and the hopeless are prolonged, they can trigger, or they can push to depression. But what is this clinical depression? What is this clinical depression that we are talking about? And I like the way, Jane, you said that, as I need to call myself meeting and ask myself, could I be going through just sadness or a clinical depression?
True.
So a clinical depression is where you manifest symptoms that we are going to talk about, but you look at those symptoms, they have been persistent for the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
And we have a manual. And I always say it's a Bible for psychologists and clinical psychologists that guides us and that tells us, when Jane, you come and see me and you tell me these symptoms have been persistent for the last 2 weeks, I'll just go back to my manual and it will guide me. And we call it the DSM.
Yes.
So DSM, nowadays we have the DSM-5.
Yes, 5.
So this is like a dictionary. This is like a Bible that guides me, that I'll be able to diagnose you and say for sure, Jane is, you know, clinically depressed. Because for the last 2 weeks, she has been going through. So I'll talk about these things. So if viewers, you have been going through this, think about it. One, you have lost interest. And this, we have the emotional and behavioral. So emotional, there's something that you loved to do. You are hyper. You loved to watch something. You loved to do this activity. But for the last 2 weeks, you do not do it. You have no interest. And for those who are also in an intimate relationship, their libido goes down. Even sexual activities go down. The other thing is something we call insomnia. Sleeping pattern disorders. Let me simplify to normal to a local mwananchi. You know, sleeping patterns. So you realize you cannot sleep well. Or you are oversleeping. And sometimes oversleeping is because you're feeling hopeless. Because you don't want to wake up. The question is, I'm waking up to what? You know? Why should I wake up? And that's what the mind always is reminding you. So you feel hopeless, you feel guilt, you feel worthless. You know,
no meaning in life.
No meaning in life. If you feel this for the last persistent for 2 weeks, probably you need to go and check for help. Even eating this pattern, you are overeating or not eating at all. So you have lost appetite. Or there is increased in appetite.
Okay.
So you find you are eating too much, and most cases you find you're not eating the right food. Because the mind is telling you, I need to munch because of the pain. The mind, remember I said it's sick illness of the mind.
Yes.
There's an ache in your mind.
Yes.
So of course those and many more are some of the emotional that you need to check and ask yourself, and something else, and I would have forgotten this. Yes. Irritable. You're very, very irritable. Anything small,
your fuse
goes up.
Yeah.
And excessive shame and guilt, excessive. You keep on feeling guilt. And of course, the feelings of that you want to leave this world.
Yes.
I don't know whether you have heard people saying, the way I'm feeling, I just want to go. And you ask them where. I go and I don't come back. So viewers, if you have someone who keeps on telling you that, those are suicidal ideations. Yes. You need to take care. And especially, I don't know, as women, I remember my mom used to say, I go to a mountain, I can't remember. And I will not come back.
That's a mountain that is going to relieve my issues. Yeah.
My issues.
Yes.
So we want to go because you know what? The brain is aching.
Yes.
And I need to run away. Sometimes we don't know where we are running away. Okay. But our mind is telling us, if I would run away, I'll feel better. So viewers, if you feel that, those are emotional. We also have the behavioral. So behavioral is when you have the emotions, you're looking for ways to cope. And some of the ways to cope are just to disrupt, because of the pain, you want to disrupt your mind. And that is where now pushes us to look for a coping mechanism. Yes. So that now that I feel better, I relieve the pain. And relieving that pain is just like using the painkiller. You have the pain and you have not even been diagnosed why the pain, but we are good at prescribing medication to ourselves. And that's what and that's what happens when the brain is aching. Yeah. So you look for ways to what you look for a painkiller. And some of these painkiller are very destructive and they harm us. And again, they become addictive. For example, some of these coping mechanisms could include using of excessive drugs. And drugs here, I mean, it could be alcohol, it could be other types of drugs. Yes. And I'm sure we'll also see with our young people. And so what it does, it gives the brain a temporary relief. Because what depression does, it destroys some of the neurotransmitters that helps us, like dopamine, serotonin, those neurotransmitters that gives us joy, that helps us when it comes to sleeping patterns, that controls pain. So depression finishes them and suppresses them. So what the mind is looking for is looking for alternatives. Yeah. And you see, things like caffeine, things like alcohol would give you a temporary of those neurotransmitters. That's why when you see some people, when they are drunk, they become happy. They have this thrilling mood. Those now it's dopamine, temporary dopamine that is being released. So when in the morning, because it goes, of course, so they would take it. That's why you hear people, I can't do without coffee. I can't do without alcohol. I can't do without. They become addictive, and now they train the mind because all of us need those thrilling, moments, and we need those release surge of neurotransmitters. Yes. So they train the mind that now the mind wants that. And we have so many things. It's not just alcohol. Zikomingi. I'm even ashamed to say something here, but I'll say it because we need to check ourselves. Yes. You see, even some of these hoping of religion hoping. I don't know whether.
Moving from one.
Exactly. That's why I was ashamed.
One faith, probably one belief,
One belief, one church, one
Uh-huh.
faith.
Uh-huh.
Today you are here,
Mhm.
and you're like, I didn't feel what I was. He or she was not anointed. Then you're finding me after 2 months in another one.
Uh-huh.
And then, there's something that is aching the mind.
Mhm.
And I don't know. And that's why
Mhm.
I keep on telling even our Christian sisters and brothers,
Mm.
sometimes even people will take advantage of us when our brain is aching.
Yes.
Because, when we get there and there's all this prophecy, fake prophecy, so our mind gets that excitement.
The relief.
The
that
relief.
It requires.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then when we get home, we realize the relief is not there.
Mhm.
So we realize actually he wasn't or she wasn't.
Mhm.
Then we hope. So there are many behavioral mechanism we find ourselves in, and people don't know how to interrupt it. But this is what I want to say in behavioral. If you find yourself you can't do without something,
Uh-huh.
you need to check why. There is a problem.
Ask yourself.
Yes.
Why?
I can't sleep without listening to the music.
Mhm.
Because sleeping should be normal.
Yes.
I can't sleep before I take coffee. I can't do this before I do this.
Probably what we are saying is, you are inducing that situation that you want.
Yes, yes, yes.
The level of the performance that you want.
Yes, exactly.
So you induce it with different things.
Yes.
But it is actually numbing the pain.
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's not addressing the problem. Even what we are seeing right now, we are seeing a lot of usage of technology.
Mhm.
We are so addicted to our phones.
Yes.
We're always on social media. We are so addicted, we can't do without it.
Mhm.
We need to ask ourselves, could we be learning away from something?
Mhm.
There are people who cannot keep their phones down. Usage of even watching of pornography. And we have so many adults, now forget about children, who are addicted to that. Why? Because they also went through something and they realize they can't cope.
Yes.
Remember what we are saying, it's just something to help coping. Ladies, we are always shopping. Even when you get money, even if you don't have, you always finding yourself, you are addicted to shopping, buying things you even don't want.
That you're not even going to use.
Yeah, you're not going, because
just buy and keep in the house.
It's addiction. So in general, what we are saying, if you find yourself, you are addicted to something, you can't do without that something, you need to check for help. Because that's another way of saying, could be you're clinically depressed.
Yeah.
And maybe as we go now to their next episode, I want to say, you see, depression sometimes is very hard for people to detect. Because you see, when you have when you have a toothache, it's easy.
Yes.
But we live with people, like you said, out of 5 people, 2 or 3 are depressed. So we are living with depressed people.
Yes.
And that is why you see, and sometimes it's hard to know that I'm depressed. That's why we are here to create awareness. When you saw those signs, take care. And I'm sure, Jane, you have seen people killing each other, and you're asking, but they looked normal.
And they were so friendly.
Yeah, they were so friendly. Because you see, it's a brain that is aching, and it's hard to see the brain. But we see the symptoms, but we keep quiet, or we overlook. Because hakuna mahali inamuuma.
Hakuna.
Exactly. So that is a background of depression, and depression can affect anyone. Anyone. Including me, the clinical psychologist. Anyone is prone to depression. But now, there are a few things that contribute to depression. So before maybe we go to the next episode, allow me to say this.
Okay, go ahead.
There are things that I tell people you need to check, so that because they can predispose you to depression. For example, depression is associated to genetic. In other words, what I'm saying, if in your lineage, there was someone who had mental illness, if, like, for example, your grandmother, whoever in your lineage, you are a relative in your maternal and your paternal, and you go through psychosocial stressors, possibilities of getting into depression is very high.
True.
So that is one that predisposes you to depression. The other thing that predisposes us to depression, it could be brain damage. You know, brain damage have been associated with depression. Of course, the most common that all of us are in, we call it the environmental or psychosocial stressors. Environmental are these day in, day out things. Loss of jobs. Remember last year, COVID, and last year, but one, things were very, very hard. You know, economy. Even right now, I was telling some people now, I'm coming up with ways of how I will support our politicians because I know several who are vying and probably some of them will not make it. Possibilities of finding themselves into depression because they have invested a lot of money
and
time and themselves and the hope and everything. Then something else, you know, in psychosocial stressors that is very common is issues to do with marital stressors. I do this, and like I told you, I have practiced this, but last year and this year, I don't know, my clientele base have increased, especially in marital. And I want to say this, even in a church setup.
Everywhere.
So, you know, sometimes we say divorce, separation, dysfunctional marriages are out there, even in a church setup. There are many. And we need to...
Because Betty, we are in the community. We are in this community.
Oh, so we are community.
We are in church or outside the church, we are in the community.
And we are people.
We are people. And the environment is affecting all of us as human beings. Go on.
Yes, so I've seen that. And you see when, and maybe I'll move now there, when there are issues in marriage and in family, everyone gets affected. Whether it's the children, whether it's us, the adults. So maybe next time we'll look at how do we deal with such issues so that we protect even our kids. Now, that's why you're seeing our children now getting into depression. Our young people getting into depression. Because we are also into depression and the things that we are going through, they are seeing. So that is, I've talked about genes, I've talked about brain damage, I've talked about psychosocial stressors, and something else is prolonged illness, you know, prolonged pain. You have this illness that is really prolonged, it can push you to depression. And of course, the economic, which is under psychosocial. So those are some of the things that can predispose us to depression, and they are normal to us. So that tells you majority of people are depressed.
Like
clinically,
clinically they are.
There
is one more that really comes out there, but so hidden. Traumatic experiences. Whether childhood or even in adult, you have gone through this traumatic experience and there's no help. You've not gotten any emotional or psychological help. Probably you can mention that a bit.
Yes, and I remember we sat down here and we talked about issues to do with sexual violence. And there are many things. Sexual violence is not the only thing that can push us to trauma. There are many things that can push us to trauma. As we were growing, we've gone through neglect, abuse, you know, accidents, so many things that we go through and push us to trauma, and we have the traumatic experience. And what, like you have said, Jane, if they are not addressed, again, they can predispose us into depression. And there are many. A lot of people have gone through negative childhood experiences. A lot. But you see, the generation that we are in, we weren't talking about mental illness. Because remember, mental illness was associated with Mathare Hospital. You see? And people, umeruka kichwa. And people didn't know that it's an illness. Si kupenda kwako. It's an illness. And that the way we have a cancer center is the way we have Mathare Mental Hospital. It's the same. We have Kikuyu Eye Hospital.
We have Kijabe
for the bones.
So
even Mathare. But you see the notion people took. That's why we couldn't talk about those traumatic. We keep quiet. it eats you, then you start projecting some behaviors, and people like, what happened? It's those issues. Now I'm depressed. Now I don't know how to cope. Now I have to look for coping mechanism. Now I have to. That's what happened. That's a pattern. Yes.
And another one that is very hidden again, probably before we go to now the children, is the collective grief. Sometimes when grief happens in the community, you find that the whole community really talking about what the losses that they've gone through. So sometimes people will take that information, that loss, and internalize it even as individuals, and that can lead into depression on an individual level, because it has come into the community because of who this person was in their lives.
I agree with you. But now, even having said that, like last year, we went through a lot of grief. And you remember, grief needs a lot of support. And that was the year where we could not have, those 2 years where we could not have those social interactions because of COVID. So you see, people are still dealing with that because we didn't have the system, the support system. Because you lose someone, we can't come, and the people who are very close to you can't come. So the support system, you're grieving and you have no support system.
And then the period of burial, it is done very fast.
Yes, very.
Time of closure, hakuna.
And we are Africans,
Yes.
If it's Western world, they don't mind.
Yeah.
For us, we want to stay with the dead, so that we do closure. That's us,
Yeah.
It's African us, and that's how we've been socialized.
And so come and
we live together,
talk about
7 days, see people, eat bread together and tea. It's therapeutic.
It is.
It's very therapeutic. But you see, we never had that. So, and grief, what grief does, it's also part of depression. Many people go through grief depression. And you have to negotiate the 5 stages.
The 5 stages,
So you have no time to negotiate. So before you think you've buried. Yeah. So I agree with you.